So these guys have really successful businesses, and what we're gonna talk about today is some things that they've learned through being in the business anywhere from 18 months to about 13 years. If they were to do it all over again, if they were to start all over again, what would they do? And there's going to be, as the topic says here, what are the systems, maybe some tricks that they have, and some habits that they have in their business, that helps them, create the kind of business that they're doing. But to start, I want you guys to introduce yourself. Julie Halter, do you want to start?
Yes.
And talk about where you're from, where people can follow you, your market, and how long you've been in the business, and then we'll go from there. So introductions first.
Sure. Hi, my name's Julie Halter. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I feel like I'm on a game show or something right now. I am just closing in on my year 2. September 1st will be my second year in real estate. And I retired from a 22-year-long career in a completely different industry, and absolutely have never turned my back since. I absolutely love this industry.
Her first week with Cascade Sotheby's International Realty out of Portland, Oregon, she spent time at the G&E, right?
Yes.
Right out of the gate?
My license, oh wow, this got louder, sorry. My license hadn't even officially gone through, but I knew that I was going to be joining Cascade Sotheby's International Realty, and my managing principal broker said, G&E is happening. So what's G&E? I had no idea. And she said, I recommend that you come with me. So I ended up being her roomie.
Yeah.
And got an intense, completely immersed in the brand, and it really opened my eyes to the power that this brand has. And when you don't have clients and you don't have any experience, you can leverage the brand. And so I've become kind of the, I am the brand ambassador for my market.
Awesome. Yeah. Madison Cullum from Palm Beach and One Sotheby's International Realty.
Thanks, Jim. I've been in the business for 16 years.
I was wrong. I thought it was 13. Sorry.
When I started, I looked like I was 12. So it was a challenge for me. But I service Palm Beach to Jupiter Island markets, do a lot of waterfront country. We have a ton of country clubs. So I'm pretty proficient in those 2 markets.
Awesome. Laura Peery, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Laura Peery from Richmond, Virginia. I'm with the Steel Group Sotheby's International Realty. I am in my 5th year as a realtor. Prior career, I was a therapist. I clearly can use some of those skills in this industry.
Like 90% of the time, right?
I sell in and around Richmond, and I also have a niche market in a secondary waterfront market called the Northern Neck of Virginia. Some of you, I know a couple of you all know the area, but so I represent mostly sellers on waterfront estates. Feeder markets for that is probably Richmond, D.C., and the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast.
So you have two distinct markets.
Yes.
You have Richmond and you've got waterfront.
Yeah.
Okay. Madison, going back, you've been in the business 16 years. If you had to start all over again, what would you start with? What would you do? How would you start? Like what's one thing that you would tell this group would be one idea, technique that you would add as a guiding principle right out of the gate?
I know Julie's also going to touch on this.
But please, take it away.
But what Julie phrases the perfection paralysis. And I suffered from that also getting into the career. And I was at a Briggs Freeman Sotheby's last week speaking on a panel in Dallas.
Dallas, yeah.
And at a lunch afterwards, I was sitting with this woman at a big lunch table, and there was other panelists on there, Robbie Briggs, and she was saying that she has been in the business for 2.5 years, and she's still waiting to do her first deal. And so we were trying to help her, and she was saying she put her own house on the market with another agent. Turns out it was listed at $8.5 million. She, super nice lady, had been studying the market forever.
So
And-
her first 2.5 years in the business was she was studying the market, essentially.
Right. And she knew everything about every house in the neighborhood, and she just wouldn't execute. And I asked her, I said, well, what are you intimidated by? I said, frankly, I'm intimidated by your property tax bill. At $8.5 million at 3% a year, it's insane. But she just was like, she was scared. And I just, me and the other two panelists that were sitting there just said, you have to start doing. You know this. You know the market. You know those houses. What else is out there? And you just have to jump.
You have to jump. Like literally there's nothing more than just getting out there and failing your way to the top, right? Like, and I know Julie, I know that you're gonna have lots to say on this topic, but yeah, I mean, you just got to get out there and do it, right? So tell me what you would do, Julie Halter from Cascade Sotheby's.
Last night over
Realty.
dinner we were joking that I actually don't like that you're asking me this question because you told me really early on what to do and I did it and it worked.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but honestly, the perfection paralysis, I too am a sufferer from this affliction, and I got over it really quickly because and I won't get into this too much,
Yeah.
I lost everything in my life in my first year of real estate. My marriage, I was dealing with a traumatic experience with my daughter. I had absolutely nothing. I lost everything. Everything that I thought I knew was wrong about my life and who I was married to. I won't get into all that. But my point is that what I learned was a huge lesson. When you have absolutely nothing to lose, you got nothing to lose. It's already all gone. So it doesn't matter. And so I figured, you know what? I will be absolutely relentless in my pursuit of happiness, security, and safety. And at some point, my daughter will see me doing a small act of daily greatness that will inspire her and will make her feel safe and will make her feel secure. And this industry absolutely changed my life. Absolutely changed my life.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Julie, that was brave for you to say that in front of everybody.
Oh, my stomach hurts.
Yeah, no, I know. But hey, like now that we're just really getting real, which I love. But hey, listen, what she meant by that was, like you said, when you have like this lady who had the $8 million house, she had really no motivation, right? Isn't that what she basically told you? Mm-hmm. Like she was just, I think it was one of those things where she put on, she had the perfect headshot, right? Everything looked great on paper. She had, she was with the brand. She had all of this going on, or whatever firm she was with. But what she didn't do was go out and be a real estate broker, which is the whole idea of being a real estate broker is you've got to put a buyer and a seller together, right? And she just never got to the point of doing that. Now, the difference is that Julie had nothing to lose, and she was motivated by you're motivated by inspiration or desperation, right? And it's very hard to be inspired when you don't have a lot on the line. Julie had a lot on the line, so she was motivated by desperation at that mode. Am I right? So that was what drove her every day to do something new and different. And then out of that came experience and what worked and what didn't work. Then she started to do the things that worked, right?
Well, basically, it's just you ask yourself, what would Jim Miller do? And then you just do that.
But what I would say there is that, you got it when you're a brand new agent, right? Or somebody new to a market, or you have plateaued. Anybody here ever feel like they've plateaued in their business? You don't have to raise your hands. But every one of you at some point in your business has plateaued, and you're looking for ways to get that business moving. And the only way that you do that, and the only way to attract new business, is to get into action. The last 6 letters of attraction is action, right? So if you want to attract business, you got to get into action. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates results. Results then creates that cyclical value of momentum, which is what we all desire to get into. And if you're not in action, the momentum can go backwards really, really quick. So what this woman that you met Madison, she never got into any momentum because all she did was surface stuff, right? In 2.5 years. Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So she held open houses and did that, but she, and I commended her for being so brave, for saying it.
Yeah.
Because when I was going through it, I didn't tell anyone. But, she kind of knew what she needed to do, but she didn't, there was no motivation.
Let's talk about you for a minute, since Julie opened up. Let's talk about you, Madison. Like when you were,
Oh, God.
no, at the very beginning, what was your hump that you had to get over? Like what was like, you know what I mean? Like, you had that paralysis thing that you were talking about. Like what was it that you were afraid of that you're in the very beginning?
I think it was that I looked like I was 12. And, I had on the phone, it was great. Like, I did commercial at first, and I was 24 when I started, and it was meeting the clients. And on the phone, it was great, and then they would meet me, and I would be pitching them an $8 million shopping center, and they're like, "You're the same guy? You can't sell me this. You're 12 years old." So
you were battling with...
It was an uphill battle for me.
Uphill battle.
Like I knew the numbers and I could run the spreadsheets and do all that stuff.
You came out of an accounting background, right? If I remember correctly.
Finance.
Yeah. So you had all of that piece down.
Right.
You weren't afraid of that side.
And then it was, that kind of debilitated me at first, but I had to get over it. And just had to get in there and start doing it.
Okay. So you powered through that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just met the right people. And the one client in particular that I still keep in contact with, who changed my life, and he was also very young, very successful family business that he took over, and he believed in me, and that's what pretty much changed it.
Okay. So that's the whole concept that we've been talking a little bit about too, is this success modeling. You saw what he did and you followed from there, right?
Yeah, his motto, I spent a lot of time with him. I leased him 250,000 square feet of industrial space. And his motto was no is not an answer. Someone will tell you no, and then you figure out how to get it done. So then I took that, later on down the road, and, if I hit a roadblock, I can be like, I can get this done. There's just another way.
I love that. So Laura has been so patient, hasn't she? Wanting to talk. What would you do, Laura, if you had to do this all over again? 5 years in the business. She's, is killing it in Richmond and in both those markets. We're so proud of her. All these guys are, by the way. But what would you tell this group? What would be one of the first things that you would do if you had to do it over again, or start over again?
I would say that one of the things is to not really worry about what you bring to the table. It probably feeds into your paralysis piece too. I think that the last year or two, I've really gotten into the power of the connections we can make within this brand and the support that we can get. I know Mackenzie talked a little bit about it, and Friley is going to talk a lot more about sort of this whole relationship we can have with other affiliates. I am so fortunate that I have been able to meet so many people in different markets and become friends and call them up on a daily basis for best practices. I just think that, since I'm new in the business, or was new in the business, if I had done this initially, just kind of like, hi, so-and-so, I'm Laura, what do you know about, Sotheby's brand? I'm on a great trajectory, but I would probably have started with that. I've got an example where I know Jeff Wilson in D.C. very well, who we're connected by Interstate 95, so he's in the next market over.
How far is that from you guys? Like, how far?
1:45, probably.
Hour 45 between
2
markets?
Are we? Yeah. So I had a gentleman call me. He had just found my name, and he owned a large house in Richmond. I was all excited, and I was available to go over there. They really were impressed by what I had to say. And then they said, oh, well, I also own this little property a little north of Richmond. It's an estate, and it's the birthplace of James Madison, the president of our United States. And we're the only, we're thinking about selling it, and it's the only privately held presidential birthplace in the country. And I'm like, okay, I could do that, you know.
How did they find you?
They just they had a place in Richmond, and they found me. I don't even remember. I think it was the Kentucky Derby day when everybody was going to parties, and they called me, and I was about to go to a party, and they're like, "Can you come over in about 45 minutes?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I mean, I think because I was there at the right place, right time, I came and met with them and just talked to them. And anyway, so I said, "Sure, I can do that." And literally, I called Jeff Wilson. I was like, "Hey, Jeff." Because, you know, Jeff has got a lot more experience. He's got we both have sort of remote markets, and this was a little bit remote. It was on the waterfront, but in between Richmond and D.C. And I said, Johan, this guy who owns this property, would like, could you come down tomorrow to Richmond and talk to me about getting this business? Of course, Jeff is like, sure. So he comes down, and that was about a year ago, and we are now currently sort of negotiating, helping him sell that for, it's probably going to be $6 or $8 million. But, you know, it'll be that's just an example of how, you know, I have no hesitation now in my listing presentations to clients to say, you know, I have really great relationships with people, other affiliates in major and minor markets across the country and Canada. And I can call Madison in Palm Beach, or Julie in Portland, or Jeff in DC, or Friday in Naples. I mean, yeah, and I tell this to my people who don't really even know me, and their jaws drop because it's really powerful and it really differentiates yourself.
Let's spend more time on that, like the power of that, like having that global partnership outside of like.
It's more than just, I mean, when I can really put a name to a face and let them believe that I'm not just blowing smoke. You know, that I don't have just this great brand. I mean, I really do have this great brand, and I really do know these great people. And I think it being able to be that authentic.
Yeah. How long does it take for you, if you had needed to do a referral in a market and you didn't know somebody there, how long would it take you to identify the right person in that market? What would you do based on what you just said? You know,
it takes me about 30 minutes.
Yeah. Because you have it's not just about the referral market in that market, knowing people there, but somebody knows somebody who knows somebody. Right? So that's what we're talking about.
Right.
30 minutes. Where else can you do that? You guys may not know this, but I have people from other firms in Chicago call me for referrals within Sotheby's. Happens twice a week.
See, so, and I'm sure most of you all get that, but for those of you who don't get it, it's like, so I might be talking to somebody who needs somebody in Palm Beach. Well, I know Madison, for example. And so it's not, you know, it's like a domino effect. It's just such a beautiful thing, and so many people don't really take advantage of what we can do.
When did you have your Sotheby's moment? This was not planned, so I'm sorry if I put you on the spot.
Well, all I've known is Sotheby's. So I joined a brokerage that's a family-owned brokerage that's been in business for decades. So they're very family-run. It's about 60 agents total. I came in right after they converted to Sotheby's, so that's kind of all I've known. And I think I'm known in our firm as one or two people who really know the brand, because I didn't have to change my way from the way real estate used to be. And so I can't remember what your question was.
Sotheby's moment. When did you have it? That's all right.
Maybe about a year and a half ago. I mean, I think last year was the real year that I really kicked in. I went to the G&E in Las Vegas, and at that point I knew several of you all, and I was at the point where I was like really getting a lot of business and not being able to juggle it and manage it very well, and I was thinking about getting an assistant. And at that point, I asked people who did have one, and I said, how do you know when you need an assistant? And they said, well, if you're asking when you need an assistant, you need an assistant. And so I said, okay.
That's actually a really good advice right there. Write that one down, because when you're asking that question, that's a pretty good sign that you may need one, right?
Yeah. So I have a full-time assistant.
I'm going to ask you to use your microphone a little bit there so these guys can hear.
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, I could obviously I could go on and on, but I'd love to talk to anybody individually if you want to know more information. But
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
yeah.
good. Julie, I'm going to pop over to you. Madison, yeah, thanks.
Yes.
What would be the one thing that, you've used social media to build a personal brand?
Absolutely.
Right? And I know you could talk about that all day, just like Laura could talk about the brand. I know you could talk about the brand too, but when you were going through what you were going through, you had to do high impact, low cost, easy to implement, and you had a flair for using social platforms. How has that helped your business, and how did you start, and what have been the results of that brand building over the last, 18 months?
18 months. Well, what's interesting is I never had an Instagram account until I became a real estate agent.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't.
Oh.
Nope, something new. And I'm just on that age of the cusp where, social media and all of this is not what I grew up with. So since I'm halfway through my 40s, it was a little bit foreign to me. And I utilized YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and a Facebook business page. I'm dialing in my YouTube channel this year, so that's on my goal. But just this morning, actually, I got a referral from someone that I haven't spoken to in 20 years, he and I are connected on LinkedIn, and he recommended me to some clients through LinkedIn because he sees what I post on LinkedIn that is different than what I do on Instagram. Instagram is the party, right? That's the party.
Right.
Facebook is the family get-together. It's kind of like the personality.
Yeah.
And then LinkedIn is the really serious, bringing all the market value, the data, things like that. So I utilize each platform in a different way.
You went over that. You went over that too fast.
Sorry.
You have to understand that social platforms do have they're different ecosystems. Okay.
Right.
You can't post the same thing on, or you can't copy and paste to 3 different.
Which I was doing in the beginning, and I
Yeah.
stopped because you can't. It's like you're having a conversation with one of your peers about something that's inappropriate in front of your grandmother.
Right.
If you have the wrong content on the wrong platform. So I spent a lot of time learning that, and probably a little bit too much time. But if anyone would like to talk to me about it, I'd be more than happy to share.
But it's
I
paid
do
off.
enjoy
I mean,
it.
that's how you've seen the success.
Yeah, I had my aha Sotheby's moment about 2 months ago. I got picked up for a dinner for a listing appointment in this gentleman's private, his limousine, with he and his wife and his baby. And we had dinner with them. I'd seen the property. I got the call because he said, I've listed this property half a dozen times over the last 20 years with a local agent. They can't get it done. It needs to be done the Sotheby's way. And I heard that you're the person for the job. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even have my listing presentation done. I don't. I still don't. Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I do now, but I didn't then. And so we had dinner, and we got back into the limousine to go back to where I had parked my car, and his wife is changing the baby's diaper in the limousine as I just got hired to represent a $5.9 million home.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And then I have a referral out to one of our Italian affiliates that they're looking at villas today and yesterday. They made an offer. They're flying me over. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And 2 Fiji islands. So if you know of anybody that wants an island in Fiji, I've got 2 of them on the docket. It's nuts. I mean, it's just nuts.
But
As
the
a baby's
part of this,
diaper.
though, is
It's
it
crazy.
started with you 18 months ago having no brand,
No brand.
building it through these different platforms, right?
Right.
And putting content out there and showing your personality in different ways on different platforms, right?
Right. And that's
then from there, they get to know you, and they, through social, like, here's what you got to understand about social media. Let's just take Facebook, for example. Facebook is like a big cocktail party, okay?
Early.
People are there, and your clients are there. And if you're not there, I know somebody that is there, and that is your competition, okay? So in the world that we're marketing in today is a lot about personal branding, okay? So not being on, being on Facebook or Instagram and some of these areas is not an option anymore if you want to be relevant in today's world of marketing. Now, if you say, well, that isn't who I am, that's not who, what I do, and I get that and I understand that, but I think that with a little bit of effort and a little bit of self-education and training, you can get on and put enough content on these platforms that you will be relevant. Madison and I have talked about this, and I'm going to let him go from here, Julie, because I know you and I could talk about this for hours. But let's take example for Madison, right? I'm going to segue. I'm going to use Laura here as an example. Laura has a client moving from Richmond to Palm Beach, right? You call your buddy up, Madison, and say, hey, I've got an introduction for you, okay? We don't use the word referral. We use the word referral only within conversations amongst each other. When we use the word introduction when we're talking about introducing clients, right? So Madison gets introduced by Laura. What's the first thing that they're going to do when they get introduced to Madison? What's the first thing that they're going to do? They're going to Google, right? They're going to search, and they're going to pull up social platforms. You're either going to have content there or you're not. If you don't have content on these platforms, guess what? That client might call Laura back and say, you know what? Is this guy real? Is he legitimate? Because I did a little research and, not quite sure. So you and I have talked about the importance of that because you're in a resort community, right? You want to talk about what you do there?
So I use social media as it's more of like a personal branding. So for that exact reason.
Right.
So, people look me up, and then it's not just about business. It's about, my kids and my family and, things that we do. And then I don't put too much kids on there because my wife would kill me. But, and then it's the obligatory listings or price reductions and stuff like that.
And Madison's one that does enough content to be relevant. He's not putting the content out that Julie is putting out. It's maybe not one of his top lead generation techniques, where for Julie, social media is the number one and number two combined, right? Yeah, I'll let you.
30% of my business my first year. And then I had about 10% of my business was directly from G&E. They were introductions from agents that I'd met at G&E. That's crazy.
Yeah.
To get a listing or have an interested buyer simply because they commented on your Instagram story. Yeah, sign me up. I'll do them all day long.
Yeah.
I do them all day long.
Yeah. So the point is that that I hope that you guys will take out of what Julie and what we just talked about is that for no cost, a little bit of effort, high impact, you can build a personal brand consistently over a long period of time. Again, it is building a personal brand is a farming technique. It is not immediate. Somebody could be following you and just kind of watching, right? And when the time's right, what do? They call you, right? But if you're not there, you're not seen, you're not at the cocktail party. If you're not at the cocktail party, your competitor is going to get that business because chances are they're there, right? So that's the whole idea of you need to have that section 3 that I talked about on the onset, where you do your lead generation, which is what we call our 3 rocks of marketing, no more than 3 lead generation techniques. Social media should never be one of those. And what do I mean by that? Social media should be that wrapping in the bow that kind of covers all aspects of your lead generation. It's something that isn't even something that should be negotiable at this point, right? It should be you're doing it, you've got to do it if you want to be relevant, and then you pick up to 3 other lead generation techniques, whether it be open houses or networking or whatever it might be to bring that business into the top. Laura, let's come back to you. You're getting the short end of the stick here because we're talking to these guys a lot. From what marketing techniques are you doing that you're feeling that out of Richmond and the waterfront that that you're getting to drive? You've talked about the brand and how you've used that in your marketing. How are you bringing people in to get these new listings, et cetera? Microphone. Yeah. Oh, you're thinking.
Thinking. Is this on? No. Sorry. Well, I don't want to get too complicated, but I've just launched a website. I think talking
Do some
about
self-promotion. Where can they follow you?
LauraPeery.com is my website.
LauraPeery.com.
And but I think that there are a lot of things that you can do in terms of branding yourself and being consistent with that branding. I mean, the social media thing for me, I had somebody who had been watching me. I had never responded to anything, and all of a sudden she calls me up one day. I went to high school with her, hadn't talked to her in 30 years or so. She says, we've got this waterfront property down in Matthews County, Virginia, and just wanted you to know if you're interested in selling it. I had no idea about what it was or where. I said, of course, I'm like, sure. And it turns out it was a $3.3 million, 50-acre beautiful property that I sold in about 75 days in a market that takes usually more than a year to sell. So, and it was just because she'd been watching me on social media. So in the waterfront market that I represent, I get...
Do you realize how awesome that is? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, we just kind of like $3.3 million listing because she'd been following you on social media, no cost, high impact, not when I would say easy to implement, it's just that you got to put the time and effort in consistently. If you did the return on investment on that, like what a commission would be on a $3.3 million listing, on the time that she had invested to build her brand and got that listing, that's sick. You know what I mean? But we just kind of talk about it like it's no big deal.
Well,
but if you're not there, you need to consider these type of things. Sorry.
What makes it kind of sicker is that she said
It's going to get sicker?
It gets sicker because it was amazing. And my broker still talks about this. So she and her husband said, because they knew it was a very slow market and it was a large property to represent, and she said, well, we just want to give a bonus to the agent that's, if you can sell it like within a year, or maybe it was 6 months or a year, we'll just give $25,000 extra bonus for it, on top of the commission of $3.3 million.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay. Well, who do you want to, let's incentivize the buyer, because I was thinking I was making so much already. And she goes, yeah, well, whatever. And so I said, well, why don't we just put that in play if it doesn't sell after a while? So I kind of forget about it, and then it sells relatively quickly. And I'm on somewhere traveling, and I get this phone call, and she says, well, I just wanted to remind you, we're so excited that it sold, and just let me know where to send you that $25,000 bonus check. I said, what? She goes, yeah, I said I was going to give $25,000. We never really formally talked about it, but we want to give it to you. So I was like, okay. So on top of my 3% commission, I get the bonus. And
She gave, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Can I just want to, I want to say something here I want you and the audience to understand that when we're telling stories like this, we're talking about three unbelievably humble people here, right? Like in a lot of ways, this is kind of hard for them to talk about. But when you have that kind of success based on, some social media presence, a drumbeat of consistent action put into your business, and then you wrap it with this beautiful brand that we get to play with. These are the kind of things that happen, right? And we tell these stories kind of like, do I even want to say it? Right? And but these are the kind of things when you put yourself out there and you're marketing yourself consistently. Is the phone going to ring if you don't put any action into your business? No, right? So, what do you want to talk about?
I've got something that's different than sort of what we've been talking about, but it's easy. So when Jim grades you on the test of how easy is this to implement and how cheap it is, this is absolutely free and very easy. And it's what I do for myself. And so it's kind of like one of my things would be to make sure you create mental resets, let's say. So a lot of us know about mentally resetting and meditating and exercising, et cetera, et cetera. But what I do with my mental resets is on my iPhone, I set up 3 reminders every day that go off.
On their alarms, you can set alarms.
And they're just phrases that resonate with me. So I encourage you all to adapt this to yourself. I know a couple of you all have that I've told this to. But mine are, for example, attitude is everything, and
What time does that one go off?
I think that's like at about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then I
Okay.
have one in the morning that's like Bring the Joy, which is always a beautiful one when I'm, trying to execute on something first thing, and then the one about 6 or 7 o'clock at night is Never Give Up, and that Never Give Up one always pops up right when I'm about to pull my hair out because some client is doing whatever that's, I'm just at my wit's end, and all of a sudden my phone's like, ding, never give up.
Wait a minute. Wait. You guys have tough clients in your market? I thought that was just a Chicago thing.
No, I attract tough clients. I'm a magnet. But so, it's just those little mental resets. It's like a threshold. I'm sure you all have have similar touch points in your life. Another thing that I do is that I've got some really specific goals for myself, which I never had set before. That's something I would say, from the beginning, really know what you want and what your goals are. One of my personal goals is to be able to travel a lot. I love to travel and just be able to financially afford doing that. And so my business card that I have put all my business charges on is a venture card. And I found out that you can get like a customized card. So my venture card has this beautiful picture of like a Caribbean or Tahitian or something place, just to remind me every time I use it what my goal is. I'm doing this because I want to be able to have money and time to be able to go and experience the world. So it's just like a little easy.
Do you have what do you got coming? Anything coming up with travel that you want to talk about?
Yes, I am. One of my so I was a. Am I going to do a Julie Halter moment right now?
Sure. She did. He did. You got it. Yeah.
Do it.
No, well, so I was very privileged in that I never really was always kind of taken care of. Never really had to make a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. So I was a therapist, made probably $35,000 a year, something like that. Saving the world, money wasn't anything that was very important to me, probably because I didn't have to worry about it. But so I just never had to take care of myself. I'm divorced now. I've been divorced since 2008 or so. And it's really important to me to be able to make my own money and earn money, and the amount of potential in real estate for a woman in particular, because a lot of us have glass ceilings, is just phenomenal. And I can't believe that I've been able to create what I've created and reap the financial benefits. So one of my goals was to treat my 3 children who are grown to an international trip, kind of all expenses paid type of thing. And I'm doing that in October of this year.
It's awesome. So that's the power of having goals and a vision for your business. And then what she did was she marked that as a goal that she was like, when she did that, or had the ability to do that, that was the manifestation of the fact that she had made that level, right? So she's rewarding herself with that trip based on that time and effort that she put in. How awesome is that, right? So as we're wrapping up this session, which has been awesome, give these guys, I'll give you each a couple minutes to give them a little encouragement on, what you would do, just your 2-minute little pep talk. Laura, I'm going to give you a break because you just came off of that. Madison, let's start with you, buddy. I didn't even tell you guys you're going to have to do this, but
Yeah.
I'm.
So a pep talk?
No, just like, a little like,
Raw.
what would you do to give these guys a little.
Well, one thing that I, bringing it kind of back to what I would do different
Yeah.
if I started over. A couple years, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I realized that I wasn't doing something right. And one of the main thing was I wasn't keeping in contact with my clients. That I would sell them a large, expensive home, and then, I would, a year or two later, drop in, or I'd see them at the mall or Publix.
We call that one night standing your client after the sale, right? You don't stay in contact with them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't hit me until I sold someone like $1 million house, and they had young kids, and then 5 years later, I ran into them at Publix, and they're like, "Oh, we just bought this great house and $4 million." I was just like, oh,
You
God.
wanted to throw up all over yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
And I was already having a tough year. And so I changed. That was the moment I was like, I need to change my whole mindset on this. And I really now kind of not pride myself, but really make an effort to really be a relationship manager that knows a lot about real estate than a real estate agent. So where constant contact, I try to contact everybody about, once a quarter, half a year. And it doesn't cost anything, just a lot of time on your phone. And, it's paid off in dividends.
Yeah. Boy, you get that working, you get, a couple rocks of marketing working, and you're leveraging business off of transaction comes in, and you're working consistently. And man, we haven't even gotten into this whole idea of daily routines and production things that you do every single day. But I think when you have the time management skills and you're being consistent every day, you're going to get into that momentum loop like we talked about, and that's something that Madison's done a great job with. Julie, what little words of advice would you give? 18 months in, you're knocking down deals. You got a brand that is starting to, have some real, power in Portland. People around the brand know you for Portland. What would you say to the group here that you would absolutely do again if you had to start over?
If I had to start over?
No, just if that would be a non-negotiable for you now based on what you're doing.
I would recommend not thinking that you have to know everything in order to have value.
Yeah.
Jim can talk about this. With what I went through was, when I first started this industry, I thought I needed to learn every single transaction piece and how to fill out every single form. And, if I didn't know how to do all those minutia things, of course we have to know how to do them, but that doesn't mean that you don't know how to gain someone's trust. And I think Pruitt said it perfect last night that, I was so afraid to put myself out there because I was going through this somewhat of an identity crisis. I'd done the same thing for 22 years. And what he said last night made perfect sense. Trust, no, I can't remember. Trust can overpower or can trump, which I even hate to say that word, but skills or knowledge.
Yeah.
Really and truly. And so, when we talk about, this client, or, I'll say this client called me out of the blue because they saw my Instagram story. The Instagram story is just what dinged their brain to remember who I am. But really why he called was that he remembered from over 25 years ago, I had helped someone in a way that no one ever knew about it, but he did, and it had no value. Yeah. And so really what you've done in your life 20 years ago will help you today. And so don't be afraid to get in front of those people, because I hid the first year. I thought I had to know how to do every form. Well, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to fill out a form. Your managing principal broker will teach you.
You're going to help you out.
And I still really beat myself up over that, to be quite honest. But
hey, listen, I'm managing 2 offices, and I'm learning something every day, right? Like so you can't you're never going to, like this lady that you were talking about from the onset, she had that paralysis of couldn't get off of get out there and actually broker because she was worried about something, right? So, Laura.
I'd have to add that just don't be afraid to use your other hand, like your non-dominant hand, and I mean that metaphorically. Like for me, I'm very relationship oriented. I can close deals. I can do all that type of stuff, but I am not an administrative person at all, period. So I have developed a lot of systems, gotten all what I do out of my head and onto pieces of paper. I know Mackenzie is queen of it. She actually helped me a lot with mine. And I think that's really, really key to just have a process in writing of everything you do, because it helps you, number one, not make a mistake and not forget a step. Number two, you can show your clients what you're doing. I also have like a marketing asset task sheet for every listing. I've got the most incredibly difficult client right now. His name is Barry. And I have I've had to literally just show him every single thing I've done for him, and it's made me create a process for it, which is, I'm grateful because it's making me sharpen my axe every day. So things like that, I'd be happy to share anything I do with any of you also. Please, feel free to email me. But I just think that not reinventing the wheel, because we have all these resources. We're all doing great things in lots of different ways. So let's all share, because especially those of us who are in different markets and not competing. I'm a big sharer.
You guys have been awesome, man. You guys went deep on a lot of stuff. And thank you very much for making the trip.